football with Eli Apple versus Tyreek Hill, depending on what team you root for. Tyreek Hill versus Eli Apple. Now, this is the old one here as far as the Chiefs, because this is where the beef began. And now, tonight, I want to make some money off of the motivation to settle this beef. It's one thing to continue the beef, and maybe you put out a half-ass record because, you know, the beef ain't over. It's another thing to settle it. And I think Tyreek Hill tonight is going to settle it. So let's build the same game parlay for you on DraftKings, BetMGM. We have these offers here for you as well. And then we're going to supersize the ever-living shit out of this sucker here and have a humongous payout. But hit the thumbs up button if you haven't already. Subscribe to the fastest growing sports betting community on YouTube. That would be us here at Oddshopper. Let's head on over to the book. See what we can do here at BetMGM. Mentioned we have a couple of cool offers for you at both books. Let's build a one game, as they say, on BetMGM parlay, which is the same as a same game parlay. Now, I understand that Tua is banged up, and there's a lot of concern right now, even day of game, that Tua is going to be playing hurt. He's going to be out there. If there was a legit concern that Tua was not playing, this would already be at 4, if not 4.5. There is a wait and see. I get it. There's always going to be a wait and see, even if you want to push this in your brain to it being a game time decision, which it's not. So Tua is playing. And right now in the one game parlay that we're building here, Dolphins plus 3.5. Now, the beauty of this is that we could push this, right? Knowing that we would rather have this at 4, let's push this to 4.5. So the first play is actually Dolphins plus 4.5, knowing that this is more of a true spread here with Tua being banged up, playing banged up. We're covered under 3. We're now covered under 4 with that 4-point margin of victory we see down 3, then getting a touchdown, now being up 4. So that covers us in 2 scenarios. And again, as much as people want to talk about Miami having this major letdown after last week's victory, what about 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, they have one of the most improbable victories in the history of the NFL. No letdown there. They come right back and beat Buffalo. So even if it's Tua making a statement out here, playing hurt, but still making a statement at Joe Burrow in the same draft class and Tua beating him, to Miami not wavering so far, yeah, I think the Dolphins cover this plus 4.5. Now, let's get to the beef. What's beef? Well, you're about to see it being settled out here on the NFL streets. First off, Tyreek Hill anytime touchdown. You know that after what he said, it's not like Miami is going to turn their back on Tyreek Hill, a la the Philadelphia Eagles in 2000. Well, I don't want to open up because Freddie's my guy, but like what happened with Freddie Mitchell and the Eagles in the first Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. Everybody in Miami has no choice but to rally around Tyreek Hill, even if they didn't like what Tyreek Hill had to say. So Tyreek, anytime touchdown, bang. That's where we begin. Now, let's start looking at receiving, and you have to get all the way down here. Receiving yards. We have to go through the home team, and then we have to go through the away team is where we'll find Tyreek Hill. Now, here, I want to boost this up. 90 receiving yards for Tyreek Hill gets us to plus 500. He's not doing that on one grab, so let's see what we can get for receptions. Again, you have to scroll down. I'm going to do this slow so you can see. May not be up there. That's fine. If there's no receptions play, then we keep it there with receiving yards. That is our 3-leg. Tyreek Hill is going to blow this shit up. Same game parlay. We are riding Tyreek Hill with still honoring the fact that Tua is not 100%. So that same game parlay, before I tell you about what's going on here, is plus 500 on a baseline. Plus 500 right there. Dolphins plus 4.5 alternate. Tyreek Hill anytime TD. Tyreek Hill 90+ receiving yards. I'm sorry, Eli, but that means you get cooked here. This is the total Eli Apple gets cooked same game parlay. And you know what? I kind of like it. Not to say that I don't like everything we put out here, but I kind of like it. Tyreek Hill's motivated. The cheetah is here. And that's all you that you need to know here as well. Just showing you that there so you can see it. One other thing that I want to tell you about at BetMGM is in 47 states right now, you have an opportunity if you have not signed up at BetMGM. I know a lot of you are signed up at other books. DraftKings, you're like, damn, shit, I can't take advantage of this DraftKings deal that they have below first where I can bet any money line in the NFL after signing up, depositing $5, and turning that into $200 just for that team winning, like Green Bay this week, for example, against a banged-up Patriots team. But I know a lot of you are not signed up at BetMGM. And it's frustrating because not only do we do a ton of work at BetMGM, but Oddshopper is carrying BetMGM as one of its many books, meaning you're going to see when BetMGM hangs bad lines, when there's good opportunity, when there's good pricing value, anything at all that's going on at BetMGM. Smaller markets that I'm putting up on the premium insider access that you're not getting on videos. Like I can't do an over total field goal bet on any of these videos here. The boss will come in and be like, dude, we're trying to get people to watch, not in.
Mike, you don't need to say nothing to me. Just give me the 5. I'm very weird about that. It's not your fault. I know. Chris does it too. Yeah. I hear it. I'm the furthest thing from professional, so.
You're talking to me, man.
What'd you say, Matt?
You're talking to me.
Right. We're hanging out. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Showdown Strategy Show. Miami Dolphins, Cincinnati Bengals. Fun game on tap today. Bengals laying 3.5 at home. We're going to break all of it down as we do every Monday, every Thursday on this show. I'm Dave Loughran at Laffy_D on the Twitters, LOUGHY_D. Hit your boy up. Just came out with the picks for every game. About betting picks for every game. That came out yesterday. It's on the Oddshopper channel. I do it every week. Got the Thursday night football game on tap there as well. And I'm joined by Matt Gajewski, Matt_Gajewski. Got a boatload of college football content over on that Oddshopper channel as well that I'm sure he would and I would love you to check out. Ain't going to find it any better. You're also not going to find any better showdown analysis for DFS. What's good, brother?
Having a great time, man. That same video you do for NFL, I'm doing for college football. And it is a beast, but there's a ton of great games over there. We've got a great game tonight. What was your initial lean in the betting market? I'm curious.
Bengals. I think it's a true letdown spot for Miami, to be completely honest with you. Whenever you have like a lot of the public going, how in the hell are the Bengals favored? You know, you have to look at that and go, oh, well, okay. But there's a lot of reasons for that, and we'll get into all of them for sure. What about you? Where were you leaning?
That was my lean too. So I'm glad. There's a lot going into Miami, just like from a narrative perspective that you don't normally talk about, like the hurricane down there. Last week, their game was atrocious, and I know they only ran 39 plays, but people were like dying on the field from cramps.
I know.
Not just on the Buffalo side either. Like even running 39 plays, Miami guys cramping and getting hurt out there. I don't live anywhere near Miami. I'm up in the north, so I can't imagine what that humidity and heat is like on game day, but it's a lot of narrative, environmental factors going into Miami here.
There's a ton going into it. And is there any way Tua wasn't concussed?
I don't know. So he wasn't in protocol early this week either. So, I mean, like, I'm sure they did follow-up tests with him.
Did you see the play?
Yes. And I saw the explanation too. It was like his back locked up. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's what they said to justify it. That's what the stumble was caused by.
I've had my back lock up before. I've thrown my back out before. And I'm not in peak physical condition, right? I'm not pro athlete physical form. But when you get up, and this is just my unprofessional, unscientific observation on the matter, Matt, and I'm going to give it to you right now. When you hit the back of your head, as he did, clearly smack the back of his head, you get up and you wobble around, right? Like a baby deer just out of the vaginal canal, trying to walk for the first time, stumble, get back up, and your linemen are like, yo, you're not. It seemed like when you have a concussion, right? You have you ever had a concussion?
Not to my knowledge. I'm not sure.
Okay. I had my jaw broke in 3 spots once. Very cheap hit. Very cheap hit. My hands were in my pockets. Never saw it coming. Stayed awake though. But I remember getting up and wobbling around because you think that you're fine. Like your head's telling you you're okay, and everything else is telling you you're not. He clearly thought that he could get back into the huddle or get back to the line and run a play. If your back locks up, dude, you are not thinking that you're 100% fine.
Yeah, man, I have no idea what went into that. I guess I'm just putting my trust in the league, which is a questionable decision. The independent investigation, we'll see what that leads to. I'm not sure, but I think the most telling situation was like they didn't even put him in protocol to begin the week. So like sometimes you see guys with concussion symptoms like pop up on Monday or Tuesday. Again, I don't know how this works. I'm not a doctor or a scientist. I don't know how the delayed concussion symptoms work. Like you take a hit in the game. Maybe it is you feel like you're fine, like you mentioned, and then the effects start to set in later. I have no idea. But that didn't happen either, which was weird to me because that hit was brutal.
I don't know how you really trust Miami right now. There's been some tomfoolery in that organization over the past couple of years as well. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. 100%.
So, I mean, it doesn't matter at this point, but it's just crazy to see him wobbling all over the place. I mean, he fell down twice, and yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I guess that's besides the point. We expect him to play, right?
Yeah, everything points to that.
Yeah. So expect Tua to be out there. Can you believe they gave up about 500 yards to Buffalo last week? They had 212 total yards of offense themselves. Buffalo ran 92 plays and lost.
Yeah, that I think is the most ridiculous stat of the entire week. And the reaction from Ken Dorsey says it all in the press box, but I'm sure you saw that. It was all over the internet. But yeah. Buffalo let them off the hook. They should have won that game without a doubt. And Miami, I don't think I've ever seen a team win a game with 39 plays in normal environments. I know sometimes we get these like crazy weather affected games and whatever it may be, right. But in a relatively normal game environment, running 39 plays and coming away with the win, unless you were hitting like 90-yard touchdowns, like that never happens.
Right. Unless that was like a, Mahomes, what was it, like the 50+ yard or 50+ touchdown season where they would run 2 plays and score on every drive.
Yeah, for sure. You probably didn't see this game, but like Middle Tennessee upset Miami this past weekend. They had 4 or 5 passes over 70 yards.
Wow.
Like, in that case, I'm not really surprised if your play volume's depressed because you're scoring on 2-3 plays here. But
what was the score?
That game wasn't too high scoring. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head. But even in the NFL, like that play volume, generally it means you weren't very efficient. That kind of explosiveness is unheard of.
We'll see. And another thing, Josh Allen, he had Isaiah McKenzie. McKenzie was open at the pylon on that. That would have been a touchdown. Allen hits that 99 times out of 100.
Yes, he does.
So what are you going
to drop a division game like that?
Yeah, real tough, especially when you've outproduced them in every area and you were missing 6 defensive starters and still held them to what, like 21 points or whatever it was. That was the craziest point. If you told me Buffalo with all of these defensive players absent from the starting lineup is going to hold Miami to 21 points, I'd say they win. I'd say they covered the 6 easy without looking.
Yeah, they eliminated Tyreek Hill too. They did a great job on him. It was very surprising me. Many surprising things in that Miami game.
Well, probably going to have some surprises today because there's always surprises when it comes to these showdown slates, just always. So we'll break it all down. Very happy to have you guys with us as always. Hopefully anybody who is, in Florida down where Ian hit is safe and the property is all right and everybody's okay. Cause they got battered. They got battered yesterday. So, for all of you out there, however many you are, hope everything's all right. Let's dive into this. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Almost at 50 likes already. I mean, we like this show. You like this show. Show us some love. It helps us greatly. Helps us keep the lights on around here. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. It does. It takes us a long way by that one simple, kind gesture of you that takes a fraction of a second. All of that. Much appreciated. All right, there we go. 50 likes. We're in business. Let's go. We'll talk with the Dolphins first. If Tua is going to play, I guess the reason, Matt, I brought this up in the beginning is because I think it's more than us just mindlessly speculating on whether it's a concussion or a back or an ankle. And here's why I say this. If it's a concussion or if it was his head and he's playing, there's probably a good chance that if he's good to go, he's back to normal. If this actually is his back, that's a problem because I'd be a lot more worried about on a short week coming off, like you said, 99-degree temps or whatever it was, traveling to Cincinnati and you're playing with a bad back where all of your throwing motion comes through. I would honestly be more worried about that than I would about the head.
Yeah, and he's listed on the injury report with a back and an ankle. I think a few things would give you optimism. He's been limited in practice 2 times this week. So if you can practice, you can probably play in games, even if you're just limited at the quarterback position. He returned to that game. And I mean, it wasn't the best game Tua's played this year, but he seemed relatively efficient out there. And he's not listed with the head whatsoever. But overall, we don't know how these things go. We're not behind the scenes. There's a lot of leeway with these injury reports. As long as you're like listing somebody with something, you're basically, like out of the woods in terms of legal trouble. It's really where you have guys that are injured and you don't list them where you can face consequences. But Tua's on the injury report, so they kind of covered themselves there. It's really impossible to know how healthy he actually is unless we get like a Shefty report or something. But right now I'm expecting him to play and be at full capacity.
I guess there's no other way to look at that, right? We have to assume that. You can speculate all you want, but yeah, I guess he's going to be good. If he's at 100%, then he's at 100%. Let's start with Tua. The last couple of games we've had, not all of them, but I know on Monday, you and I and AB talked about Dallas and New York. Fun game, by the way. And hey, was AB right about kickers or what?
AB was right. I hope he capitalized on that and really made some money.
Yeah, that he would have chopped with a lot of people, but still would have done well. Although I had a lot of success in single entry contests by just playing a kicker, not even in the captain spot. In some of those smaller field single entries, you didn't need to have the nuts, which was kicker in the captain and kicker in the utility. But we had Cooper Rush, we had Daniel Jones, who I am an Eagles fan. I do not like the Giants or the Cowboys. Daniel Jones is getting a horrible rap this year, honest, at what everyone's saying about. I'm not saying he's good, Matt. You can't be good behind that line, though. You cannot be good behind that offensive line.
Yeah, it's basically what Andrew Thomas and a slew of just underachieving players outside of him. I mean, he's also not getting any help at receiver, like Wandale getting hurt, Kadarius in the doghouse / getting hurt, Galladay. I don't know if he's just not trying, whatever it is. Sterling Shepard tears his ACL. Who is their receiving core going to be this week? David Sills, Richie James, and who's the last guy?
Well, Galladay's clearly been in the doghouse, right? And then he comes out and has a very timely drop, which is a huge drop. Yeah, bad drop. I don't know, man, because Brian Dable suggested there's a good chance that Robinson and Tony won't be on the field.
Yes.
So I honestly think, if I had to guess, I think it'll be Slayton and not Galladay as the wide receiver 3.
That's crazy too. Like Slayton should be playing, in my opinion, over Richie James and David Sills. But
Slayton's a nice deep threat. But all right, well, but anyway, I'll get back. We get off track here sometimes. What I was saying though is you had Cooper Rush and Daniel Jones. Cooper Rush was good, but both those guys, cheap quarterbacks. And who is it that we had like a week ago, maybe last Monday? We had 2 other quarterbacks. We had
Brissett and
yeah,
it was like
and
Trubisky.
Trubisky, yeah. So we've now had 2 of the last 3 games where it's cheap quarterbacks, and you can just go and play all of the skill players that you want. In a situation like this, it's not going to be the same thing. You have Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Joe Burrow and Tua aren't the most expensive quarterbacks you're ever going to get, but they're not cheap either.
No, they're competent NFL quarterbacks, and I think above average ones at that. Tua specifically has been balling this year. And I think it's largely the difference in coaching and, I guess, skill position players around him. You bring in Tyreek Hill. You have playmakers in that offense that now can create yard after catch opportunities. But Tua's also been playing really well downfield. He's been attacking downfield, throwing the ball downfield with accuracy. And that was the main criticism of Tua heading into this year. I don't really think it was founded because he threw downfield plenty at Alabama, and he did so with supreme accuracy. So I think Tua Tagovailoa is fine. He's like mobile in terms of movability in the pocket. He's never really going to be a guy that scrambles or, has designed runs, but I think Tua is fine in terms of what he adds in the ground. It's a little bit there. What I'm trying to say is the upside is clearly there. And I think it's the same with Joe Burrow. And that's why these guys are priced similarly. They're stackable, both of them elite pass catchers on both sides. And honestly, it's not too hard to make lineups with either of them today. They're still not in that Mahomes, Josh Allen pricing tier. They're just a little bit below that. So I think lineups with them look pretty nice, and they're very easy to stack. Like, how they win. So it's when I'm using Tua Tagovailoa and captain, I want 2 of his pass catchers there because he's not winning on the ground like a Josh Allen can or a Lamar Jackson can. I think the range of outcomes is narrower with both of these signal callers.
It's funny you say that, because right after I had mentioned the pricing, I thought about it and I go, actually, these guys are way less expensive than I thought they would be on DraftKings. Way less. I thought you'd have guys like Jamar Chase and Tyreek Hill more expensive, and then everything would just be raised. Like the floor of everybody outside of the minimum salary guys would be raised. But yeah, they're not, I guess you're right. They're not that expensive, all things considered. Especially if you compare it to how expensive Trubisky or Brissett or Rudolph, or Daniel Jones or Cooper Rush were.
Yeah, it's really not bad, and it's not hard to get them. And you look on the back end of our tools, they both come in with positive leverage scores. I'm not too surprised to see that at this point. Burrows looks a little bit better. I think overall that probably just comes down to like spread, and they're projected to score more points, and we've seen Burrow's ceiling. But I'm fine with Tua as well. And I built some lineups this morning. It's pretty easy to stack him with Tyreek Hill or Waddle. And I think you can even make some lineups with both.
Let me ask you this here, so we can kind of get a 30,000 foot view, as the people like to say, before diving into the skill players on both sides. So these matchups to me are odd. I should say they're interesting, because on one hand, no one's really talked about the Bengals defense because their offensive line has been so bad. But Matt, they're 7th in defensive DVOA right now. And a lot of this is adjusted, schedule adjusted. These are schedule adjusted. So it's not, you could be like, oh, they played bad teams. Yeah, but a lot of this is adjusted for the matchups. 7th in defensive DVOA, 8th in pass defense DVOA, 9th in run defense DVOA. Really solid defensively so far. Their pass rush has been fine. They just lost. Didn't they just lose DJ Reader though?
I believe so.
Yeah. And he's their nose tackle. That's not great, but still the defense has been good. Miami on the other side, you have a secondary that you look at and you go, they should be good. Like they should be very good. You have Xavier Howard, who's, a perennial Pro Bowler. I know they've been without Byron Jones, but still, this should be decent. Anyway, what I'm saying is they're struggling in the secondary. They've been crushed by opposing passers, 29th in DVOA. But from an offensive standpoint, we can get back to Miami defense in a second. From an offensive standpoint, how do you think this shakes out against Cincinnati's defense that actually has played well, but hasn't gotten any recognition because of how bad their offense has been?
Yeah, I'm a little worried with Cincinnati's defense still. Like, I like the defense overall, but you look last year, it's a lot of the same guys out there. I think their secondary might be a little bit overrated. People are going to talk, and they have been, about that interview Tyreek Hill did about Eli Apple. And Eli Apple's played well in some spots. He's also gotten owned in some spots. So we have a large sample with, a lot of these guys. I think Jesse Bates, without a doubt, their best player on the back end, but I'm not necessarily scared of Eli Apple and some of the other secondary pieces. And now they'll be facing arguably the best receiver tandem that maybe they'll face all year. Two guys that are very difficult to defend, even with some of the best secondaries. So the defensive matchup, I do think could be an issue. Honestly, it scares me more up front because Miami's offensive line hasn't been great either. And you do have some decent pass rushers in Hubbard and Hendrickson. But on the back end, I'm not worried about Tyreek Hill facing Eli Apple or Jalen Waddle facing like Chidobe Awuzie or any of these cornerback wide receiver matchups. I think they can certainly win, which will come down to game planning from Mike McDaniel, which he's been very good at. So I'm going to put my faith in that and his ability to scheme Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle open and outside of the strengths of the Cincinnati defense.
I don't think we need to be worried either. I don't. I mean, for me, the biggest question too is Tua who is Tua Tagovailoa? Like, is Tua the guy we saw in the fourth quarter against Baltimore? Is he the guy that was fine against the New England Patriots? Is he the guy who was, okay against, I'd say he's fine against Buffalo before the injury? Who is Tua? And does it even matter knowing that you have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill at his disposal?
I've always liked Tua. I liked him coming out of school, but I don't know that he's like a creator or an elevator on his own. It honestly seems like the opposite, because when he had receivers that maybe weren't NFL starter caliber, he wasn't elevating them maybe like a Trevor Lawrence is currently doing, or something like we've seen Herbert do when they've had injuries in Los Angeles. But now that he has Tyreek Hill, now that he has Jalen Waddle, we've seen his performance increase. Now, this also is directly in line with him suffering numerous injuries in his career, so it's hard to decipher the reason why. But ultimately, he's been playing good this year, and he's been playing efficient football. I personally think that continues because nothing has really changed in the offense.
So one of the objectives of this show is always try and, make things. And Sturd said Tua looked great versus Buffalo. I said he looked fine before the injury. I always want to make it easier for the viewers. If we're prioritizing players at the wide receiver position, there's a lot of good ones. And we could talk about T. Higgins, whose price is, far below everybody else. But when it comes to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle stacked up against a guy like Jamar Chase, whose longest reception this season is 24 yards, then 17 and 10. They've had a very tough time getting the ball downfield to him. Hopefully something they can correct for. How do you prioritize these guys? Because you're not going to be able to play all three of them in a lineup, especially if you want a quarterback with the stack.
Right. So we're just talking the elite receivers here, correct?
Yeah.
So that's Waddle, Hill, and Jamar. I think you're automatically looking at Waddle and Hill as a little bit above Jamar. And it's nothing to do with Jamar's talent. I actually think he might be the most talented of the three. But the targets are so condensed in Miami right now. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are nearly accounting for 30% of the targets each. Like nearly 60% of the team's targets are flowing through Waddle and Hill.
It's the highest target share in the league between two players, and it's not close.
They have over 75% of the air yards.
Yep.
It's unbelievable opportunity condensed between them. Whereas in Cincinnati, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, yes, they're the 2 target leaders, but Tyler Boyd's involved to a higher degree. Hayden Hurst is involved to a higher degree than anything we're seeing in Miami. So if you're making me pick between the 3 elite players, I'm going to go towards Waddle and Tyreek over Jamar Chase because their opportunity is a little more bankable. Nothing against Jamar. I think he's a phenomenal player. Love Jamar as a player. And I'll be playing him today. I'll be playing him in Burrow stacks and in GPPs. But forced to pick one, it's going to be one of the Miami guys.
So check this out. And this speaks to what you were talking about. I was looking at this the other day. I almost tweeted something on it, but then I was like, I don't feel like it. Anyway, if you're looking at target share, it's not just the fact that Waddle's around 30%, Tyreek Hill's almost at 30%. There is no clear number 3 option. Chase Edmonds, 7.9 target share. Mike Gesicki, 5.9. Mostert, 5.9. Durham Smythe, 5.9. Alec Ingold, 5. Trent Sherfield, 5. River Craycraft, 4.3. This is who is behind these guys, Matt. There isn't a single player with a target share north of 7% that isn't named Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And if you're deciding between them, if say you're playing like Burrow, Higgins, Tagovailoa, and you need to stack one of these receivers, it's probably still Tyreek Hill for me. One thing that could be a differentiator, Waddle's in the injury report. Now he's had back-to-back limited practices, so I'm not real concerned here, but it is a soft tissue injury. It's a groin. Maybe that gets aggravated. Maybe he's limited to some degree. Again, not a real concern for me, but if I'm forced to break ties and I can only play one of these elite receivers, Tyreek Hill would be 1, Waddle 2, Jamar 3.
Are there any other pass catchers that you're interested in for Miami? If this is a full slate, obviously the answer is a resounding no. But being that it's a showdown slate, and this is where your specialty comes into play, are there any other players that might warrant some conversation? Because there's nothing down here.
Yeah, it's really hard, especially because like even the players you mentioned, River Craycraft, he's at 3,600. Durham Smythe's at 42. That's the captain pricing. If you're playing them in the flex, like River Craycraft, 2,400. Durham Smythe, 28. Like these guys aren't your Stoneman. It's not your Jake Ferguson, Peyton Hendershot, Stoneman ancillary players. These guys are getting really limited targets, like under 5%, and they're priced up compared to where they should be. So I think they're really hard to get to today. They're not players I have a particular interest in, to be honest with you.
That's the biggest issue I have is none of them are dirt. None of them are priced for their role. You know, Mike Gesicki's $5,000 in the flex.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Doesn't that seem crazy? That I don't know. He shouldn't be much more expensive than Hendershot was on Monday. Obviously, he should be what? I'm not even probably 2,500 for Mike Gesicki. 3,000
at this point, yes. The reason he's not there, and I understand, it's just the name value. Like he's previously been.
I know. I get it. What I'm saying though, I get why they priced him like that, but I get why you wouldn't want to pay 5,000 for him.
Yeah, we're in 100% agreement there. Exactly. I would rather play a kicker or a defense.
So listen, Gesicki has the one element of his game that could be beneficial is if they get in the red zone, he could definitely score. But this is the problem. You and I have had plenty of success on these shows and then on these slates with playing a $1,000 or a $200 or a $2,000 tight end that catches one ball for 12 yards and a touchdown. At 5,000, one reception for 7 yards and a touchdown probably isn't getting you there tonight.
Right. You need. I think you honestly need just a little more opportunity. The only thing I think that could maybe get you there is, Waddle is on the injury report. You have a couple guys in this Miami injury report, actually, among the pass catchers, like Hunter Long's been out. That's nothing new, but Waddle's there. You have Cedric Wilson. He was limited in practice all week. Again, I think these guys are going to play, but if they're limited or banged up, maybe you see one of them play slightly more snaps. And if I'm forced to pick one of these really cheap Miami pass catchers, I think it's going to be Trent Sherfield. Again, I don't plan on doing this a lot, but Sherfield at least has a near 42% snap share this year. Again, it's come with 5 targets. That's horrific, but 42% of the snaps, I guess you could do worse.
I think so. At least if he's on the field close to half the time, I get it. I've been banging the drum for Raheem Mostert for a long time now. I'm just a big fan of his skill set. I think Raheem Mostert, similar to a Sterling Shepard, when they're healthy, they're good. The caveat, they're rarely ever healthy. But when they're healthy, they're good. And, now on the season, Chase Edmonds has run 53 routes, 8 targets. Raheem Mostert's run 43 routes, or 48, sorry. So 5 fewer routes than Edmonds. Raheem Mostert has 24 attempts on the year. He hasn't been all that impressive yards per attempt standpoint. Granted, faced some tough fronts. Chase Edmonds has 23, and he's averaging the same yards per attempt. So when it comes to price point, am I really crazy for thinking that me being able to take around a $2,000 discount on Raheem Mostert isn't something that stands out there? Plus, Raheem Mostert has outsnapped him in weeks 2 and 3.
No, it's not crazy. I think this backfield's going to ping pong throughout the year. Edmonds clear RB1 week 1. Raheem Mostert clear RB1 week 2. A little more split week 3 with an edge towards Mostert, but the only thing that matters to me is price here. And there's a huge gap between them for essentially what has been a near 50-50 committee on the year. And it's not like they're both playing clear roles. I think Edmonds may have a slight edge in the pass game, but to your point, Raheem Mostert's been shockingly involved in the pass game. So to me, I think you just take the savings here, unless you're playing the leverage game and you're trying to just pay up to be contrarian. Between the two, I think Raheem Mostert's the more efficient price-adjusted play.
I'm trying to see where ownership is right now, pulling up our top plays tool. It's the best one-stop shop tool for Showdown contest, undoubtedly. Oh, prime time. I think today's the last day. $1 for everything for Showdown stuff. Not Fantasy Cruncher. We don't own Fantasy Cruncher. You guys know that. We just host it. But still, you're getting ownership projections. You're getting top stack, you're getting the top plays tool, which is giving you the top play probability, the captain ownership, utility ownership, leverage score. What's the probability that there'll be 2 through 6 or 2 through 5 when it comes to FanDuel? All of that. We have it for DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo. That tool, and Matt will attest to this. Neil Orfield, who's the Showdown shaman. I named him that the other day, Matt. Pretty solid, right? He attests to it. He uses, you guys, from all the shows he does, he uses the tool frequently. All of the Showdown content for the week, $1, which means that is 25 cents a game. Now you might be saying, what do you mean it's 25 cents a game? It's 33 cents a game because there's only 3 coming up. Wrong. London game, 9:30. We're going to have all of the tools updated for that on Sunday. So you got tonight's game. I guess it's good through next Thursday too. So that's, knock it down, 20 cents, or as AB would say, 2 dimes. That's tonight's game, Sunday morning, Sunday night game, some good ones too. Monday night, Thursday night, $1 single. Mike can throw the link in the chat. It's in the description for those of you guys that are watching after the fact. Today's the last day. It's $1. It's essentially free for all of our Showdown tools, all of our Showdown stuff on the site, all the way through the next week. Check it out. This is the best time to do it, being that you're going to get 5 Showdown games. Use the promo code primetime, use the link, however you want to do it. Stokastic.com/promos, million different ways, but take advantage of that $1 for all of that. And if you want to follow along, well, you can do that right now. All right. Anybody else you want to talk about for Miami?
I guess we could hit on the tight ends. It's not really a position of strength, at least for DFS. We mentioned Gajewski already, but like Durham Smythe's playing a considerable amount. I think they value him mainly for blocking. He kind of occupies that role where he's on the field. We need to mention his name, but as far as price adjusted plays, he's not great. He's in that like River, Craycraft, Cedric Wilson, Trent Sherfield area where you're just so close to kickers and defenses that I prefer them, but just at least want to say the name Smythe and Gajewski. They're the tight ends. Since McDaniel's taken over, it's been very ugly for tight ends.
Okay. And yeah, exactly, Ryan. 20 pennies would be 20 pennies per game. Last thing I wanted to say, I don't think captaining Raheem Mostert in large field contests like the Millie Maker is the craziest idea. Man, I'll tell you just one reason why. Let's say he does get, 13 touches. Let's say he gets 13 touches, which clearly isn't out of the realm of possibility. Through 3 weeks already, we've seen him in week 1, lesser involved, but then 14 touches in week 2, and then 10 looks in week 3. He's one of the fastest players in the league. Matter of fact, 3 years ago, he had the 2 fastest clocked runs, according to Next Gen Stats. I know you remember this, in the league that year. And they were both on 80-yard touchdowns. So he can break loose. This guy can absolutely break loose, run away from the pack. If you get a big play or two from Mostert, and like Matt said earlier, Mike McDaniel goes, he's the guy today. It wouldn't shock me if he sees, this is obviously large field tournament captaining, but it wouldn't shock me if he saw a lot of work if he's playing well.
Yeah, I agree with you. And for a couple of reasons. One, the talent's there to do it. We've seen this happen in San Francisco, where Mike McDaniel comes from. They'll just ride running backs, use the hot hand, and they blow up for big games all the time. We just saw Chase Edmonds score 2 touchdowns last week. If he didn't suck so much along with it, he could have had a massive score. Now, the other thing that it affords you is a different build. He's very cheap. So not only are you accessing a ceiling at captain, but maybe you're accessing a lineup that has both Tagovailoa, Burrow, and then maybe you could get 2 elite receivers. Your builds are just going to look different with a Raheem Mostert captain because of the studs at top. Most of the captain ownership is going to be condensed to Burrow, Tagovailoa, Chase, Higgins, Waddle, Hill. So you're taking maybe the 8th, 9th most on captain here with a different build. In large field, I think that's solid.
No doubt. Sterd said a lot of these targets are reduced due to the 39 plays last week. Yes, but we're using target. If you're using target share, it doesn't make a difference. It's what percent of the targets are these guys getting. And in this, and I'm sure you know that, but in this case, it's still like 60% for Waddle and Hill, and then cleaning, getting the scraps underneath the table is everybody else. All right. Kickers defense, Miami defense, kicker position. Anything you want to do here before we talk Cincinnati?
Yeah, we'll just talk some player personnel quick. Miami hasn't been great on defense. I think a lot of reasons why. They've been very injured on the back end. So it's not just Byron Jones. Xavier Howard's playing through a groin injury. These injuries are very tricky to evaluate. Sometimes they require surgery if they're of the sports hernia variety. What it comes down to is he's playing through a soft tissue injury, and he's been doing it all year. And Howard is a physical corner. He relies a lot on that, and he's been limited to that degree. I don't think that's getting any better for Miami anytime soon. So all that to say, I don't really have any fear of the matchup for Burrow. And if I'm picking a defense, just 1-for-1, it's probably going to be Cincinnati. I'll still play some Miami and some contrarian builds. Again, largely because the value is not great today. I'd rather play a defense than like Durham Smythe. But I just want to mention some player personnel and things you should be thinking about for defense today, player personnel-wise on the Miami side. Kicker, Sanders, I'll definitely play him.
All right. Hey, we'll build a lineup too. We always do at the end of this show. And Blitz, welcome to Team Stokastic. Where have you been? How did it take you this long, Blitz? Happy to have you here. Badge looks good, but been a while. Almost insulted. No, I'm kidding. We got almost 500 people watching, 100 likes. Appreciate you guys hanging out. We're going to talk Bengals. Before we do though, shout out to our sponsor, No House Advantage. They're killing it lately. Prize pools are bigger. Site looks better. Everything is crushing it. And they decided to up their first match deposit bonus to $50 when you use the link in the pin or in the link in the chat, or again in the description. The very cool thing about this, number one, is you're making lineups with no salary, no cap, no salary cap, none of that. Player props, no juice on either side, the over or the under. And if you want the edge, we have the No House Advantage Optimal Lineup tool. We have the NFL lineup generator and projections, all for No House Advantage, free over at Stokastic.com. So that's the biggest thing out of the gate. You're getting an edge right there that other people aren't. Also, any sport you can think of, they've got you covered. Baseball, football, basketball, golf, MMA, NASCAR, and you're just playing against the field as you would anywhere else. The best part out of anything, and Ben says this all the time, is that the props are static. They don't move. So whatever comes out, that's what you're getting. and you're building lineups, eight player lineups. I think it might be less when it comes to Showdown, but 8 player lineups or however many it is, the ones you like the most go up top. Yeah, see, Mike, that looks good. Thank you for putting it up. That looks very good. The ones you like the least, put them at the bottom because they get the fewest points. And go ahead, make some money. Get that $50 first match deposit bonus. You can also test your skills against the house, 20 extra entry if you hit all your picks. But there's a lot. You can win 100. There's a shot at winning 150K in cash with the play-in pick'em contest versus other people. Download the app, No House Advantage, App Store, Google Play Store. Go to nohouseadvantage.com, however you want to do it. But be sure to check it out and use the link if you want to get that $50 first match deposit bonus and use our free tools at Stokastic.com. All right, Matt, let's talk about the Bengals here. Joe Burrow, I think you said it. He's more expensive than the quarterbacks we've been seeing recently, but he's reasonably priced.
Absolutely. Somewhat mobile, which we like. He's not a guy that's a real liability there. He has taken some sacks, but I think they've kind of, I don't know, at least sort of tried to address that. Like there was the kind of outburst that we saw from Burrow saying like, no more empty. And, that makes sense when your offensive line is a sieve. But I think that'll get corrected with Burrow. We know the upside as a passer. And honestly, you're probably buying a little low on him. I think you look at his early season run out, hasn't been quite what we expected from Burrow, but we know the upside is clearly there. I like his pass catchers. The only issue is stacking him price-wise. You're probably looking at T. Higgins. If you play Jamar Chase, I think you could get a considerable amount of leverage because of his price. But what are they doing pricing T. Higgins this week?
I don't know. I looked at that and was equally surprised as you were. I know he hasn't been electric, but
he got knocked out of 2 games.
I know. And it's shocking to me that he's this cheap. Where's his ownership? Let me pull up the top plays tool. All right. So we've got him at 9% in the captain, 37 in the utility spot.
Yeah, what this says to me, and the tools reflected is yes, he's going to be owned, but probably not owned enough. And I think
4% leverage score, which is not bad at all.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And yes, he's cheap. If you're a sharp builder, if you're playing small field and you're playing cash games, you're going to be building with T. Higgins. But what this says to me is enough of the field is going to be coaxed away by the big name Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddles, that T. Higgins still not going to be owned enough as he should be if this slate started at this moment. Again, monitor the tools throughout the day. Make sure you check live before lock. We'll have more updated versions of this. But right now, T. Higgins, excellent play, not just from a price standpoint, but he's still giving you leverage based on our tools.
I don't know how you get away from it. Of course, not every lineup, but at that price point, it's a very, very appealing spot for a player who has proven that is he Jamar Chase? No, I'm not saying he's Jamar Chase, but T. Higgins can have monster games. T. Higgins has 2 touchdown upside any game. I absolutely love him here. You're talking about a player last year who, was an 1,100-yard receiver and missed 3 games and had odd rates in the red zone where he was getting peppered with targets, but just wasn't coming down with them. So he's going to get red zone looks. He's going to get targets. And like you said, knocked out of games, but when he's on the field, T. Higgins is getting a ton of looks.
He was on path to a monster game last week.
Yeah.
He got injured and he missed some time on the field. This guy would be the wide receiver 1 on like half of the teams in the NFL right now.
Imagine putting him on
Green Bay, Houston, Chicago,
New England,
New York,
New
England, both New Yorks.
Yep. Now I'm just curious.
Seattle. Nah, maybe not.
No,
Seattle.
not Seattle.
Denver.
Not San Francisco. No, Sutton's my guy. You're probably right. I'm a huge Sutton fan though, so I can't do it.
I like Sutton. I think he's better than Sutton.
Really?
Yeah.
He'd be the number 1 on the Jags, even though Kirk is good.
Tennessee.
Did you say Houston?
I don't remember. I said a lot of teams. He'd be the number 1 on Houston.
Can we just say AFC South?
Yeah, probably Indianapolis. He's probably better than Pittman. It's close at least. Pittman, he's more proven than Pittman.
Yeah, I think Pittman will ultimately have a better career, but right now, yeah, T. Higgins. God, could they use T. Higgins or what right now? Yeah. He's better than Amari, right? I think so. It's Cleveland.
Yeah. Cleveland.
So
I think
pretty
it's
much
debatable with Pittsburgh. Like, it's hard to say with Pittsburgh because Deontay's been so limited by his quarterbacks, but
yeah.
the
And
conversation can be had.
I was going to say,
Baltimore,
you guys don't have to agree with any of this. It's a matter of opinion. It doesn't matter. The fact is that T. Higgins, there are plenty of more than just a handful of teams where he would be the clear number one on that team. And he's the 2 here. And he's priced like a number 2 receiver.
it's a 1A, 1B situation. Even if you look at the opportunities when they're on the field, Jamar Chase is only very, very narrowly ahead of T. Higgins in targets.
I know. And he's played every snap.
Chris in the chat, Chiefs. Yeah. Imagine him with Mahomes.
Oh yeah. Chiefs, obviously not including Travis Kelce, but yeah, Chiefs.
Yes. Atlanta.
Absolutely. God,
Might be like 20 teams. I don't know.
What would his stat line look like if he played 17 games with the Chiefs?
Oh my gosh. He probably like 1,400 yards. I think he'd have like a Mike Evans-esque stat line.
Like 12 touchdowns and 1,400 yards?
Yeah.
He probably would. He's sick, man. He's also big. T. Higgins is he's 6'4", 215. So he's big. He's a good red zone threat.
He is athletic too. He wins downfield. He's kind of like a blend of Mike Evans, Mike Williams, these like big receivers, but he's also athletic and wins in other ways as well. Anyway, he's a great play today.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time on this, but Brandon says T. Higgins appreciation hour. Yeah, it's just odd that he's so cheap, especially given that he's been knocked out of multiple games. And in week 1, he barely played. So I like it. What about Chase then? And outside of the obvious, Matt, you know how I phrase these questions. Outside of the obvious, yeah, Jamar Chase is a good receiver.
Yeah, I think the main function of Chase today is going to be leverage if he ends up providing you that. The only worry I have is he's very popular. He's a big popular name. So could Chase actually come in a little overowned compared to where he should on today's slate, given we have alternatives? Sometimes it comes down to who can you play in their stead. Right now, we have Chase as a slightly negative leveraged play, which it was a little eye-opening to me, but I think it makes sense given the other prices we have on the slate at the elite receivers. That doesn't mean you can't build lineups with Chase. You can't build GPP lineups that use him. It's just you need to be a little more cognizant when you're doing so. He looks like a player that could potentially be a little over-owned today, given the alternatives.
So I can't wait to talk about Mixon. I actually think he is, not Tua, not Higgins, not Chase, the most interesting and kind of integral piece on this slate when it comes to having to get something right. Because had his season started differently from an efficiency and a production standpoint, Mixon would have been way higher in price. But before we get there, other pass catchers for Cincinnati, Tyler Boyd, Hayden Hurst. How do we reconcile where their price points are compared to where their production and usage is?
With Boyd, I think he's pretty close to T. Higgins, where I probably just want to find the salary to make that jump. And it's not 1-for-1. If you use them in the flex, T. Higgins, 8,200, Boyd's at 7K. It's not the easiest jump, but it's still one I'm probably going to prioritize. Boyd, his big games have largely come when one of them has been injured. Now, that doesn't mean he can't pop up for a big game here or there, but I would like to find the salary for Higgins if possible. There's a clear tier break. Hurst is in a different category. He's kind of in like your kicker defense range. And given that this is a total that's pretty solid, Hurst has been really involved. Now, it hasn't necessarily been reflected in the box score, but he's out there for a ton of routes. Targets, I think, will come here and there, kind of like they did with CJ Uzomah last year. You know, like Uzomah would pop up for big games occasionally, more or less as an attachment to Joe Burrow. I think that's in Hurst's range of outcomes. So for him, I'm a lot more excited about just due to price compared to Boyd, but I think all of them are in play just because they're attachments to Burrow.
Any other pass catchers?
I don't think so. This isn't a team like Miami that really rotates much. Like even Hurst is on the field most of the snaps. There's very little outside of these big, we'll call them big four guys.
All right. So people are going to look at this Mixon and Samaje Perine usage from last game and think, oh, that's weird. But Perine's 7 of his 9 carries came on Cincinnati's final drive of that game, and Mixon banged his ankle up a little bit, but he's good. The reason I said that Mixon is such a fascinating spot is twofold. One, he hasn't been that good, and I blame a lot of that on the offensive line. My guess is yards before contact. I haven't looked, but my guess would be that he is towards the bottom of the league in that category with how they have blocked for him. However, if you're looking at total touches or total looks, which is, in my opinion, more important in a case like this, Joe Mixon every single week is getting a ton of that opportunity. It's so tough to see this and not be like, man, no matter what we say, he's going to get, look, 71 total touches, leads all players, but more importantly, all running backs in the league. 71 touches, leads all running backs in the league. Remember when everyone was saying Chris Evans was going to be the pass catcher this year and third down back? And, Samaje Perine is a better pass blocker, would get some. Joe Mixon has 20 targets. He's on pace to have his highest target total of his career.
Yeah, I didn't believe any of that nonsense. You might be talking to the biggest Joe Mixon fan on the planet. I don't know. I love Joe Mixon.
On the field, of course.
on the field.
I'm joking.
This dude is electric. He's been electric since he was in college. And he was an awesome pass catcher in college. People don't know this, but they lined him up in the slot at Oklahoma. He played on those Baker Mayfield teams, used him all over the formation. Now, if it comes down to pass blocking, I'm not an expert in pass blocking evaluations. If Samaje Perine is truly better than Mixon in that category, then sure, take him off the field on third downs. But this is getting in the weeds here. Mixon's pass game opportunity has been better than expected this year. And that warrants a price tag on par with like your Dalvin Cooks, maybe not your Jonathan Taylors, but like your 3 down backs. He is that. And he is a player that is providing positive leverage on our tools in the back end. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if he provides even more leverage than this, just because of how in love people are with the Chases, the Tyreek Hills, the elite pass catchers on this slate. There is opportunity cost. You can't go out there, play Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, and Joe Mixon plus a quarterback. Like you're going to have to make decisions. And if Cincinnati just scores touchdowns on the ground with this opportunity, Joe Mixon has a clear path to being the optimal captain tonight. This dude is awesome.
I know that Miami's run defense hasn't been bad and that the Bengals offensive line hasn't been good. I think they'll start to gel. They had, they restructured this offensive line a lot, but it's the volume for me, Matt. If you look at routes run on the season, here, Saquon Barkley, 90, all right, on a team with no receivers. Number 2, Joe Mixon, 87. He's always out there. He had 48 targets in 16 games last year. He already has 20 in 3 games. There's just so much volume. Even if he hasn't been effective, he's going to play anywhere between 70 and 80% of snaps. For me, it's that simple. I know he hasn't been great, but I'll take the volume. I'll take the workload. I'll take the fact that he's been out there on third down all day long. And yeah, I'll run with that for sure. Perine's price is too expensive for me.
Yeah, you mentioned why. His touches came like Joe Mixon just got pulled from last week's game as a precaution. You need to have him in that game at that point. Plus, if he turns his ankle a little bit, what's the use in keeping him out there? So I think
Perine was on pace for his same workload that he got in week 1 and week 2.
Yeah, they made a business decision. Keep the guy you want to have that workload throughout the year. Keep him healthy. Put Perine out there. That's what they did. So complete agreement with you. Perine's in the category where I think he needs an injury to pay off this price tag.
Yeah, it has to. And, you can make as many arguments as you want that, hey, maybe Joe Mixon goes down. Yeah, then in that case, Perine could definitely be the guy. But right now, it's no surprise that he has the lowest leverage score of anybody on the slate. There's no surprise at that price point.
No, not at all. He's more expensive than Chase Edmonds.
Right. How does that happen?
I don't know.
It doesn't make he's only $1,600 less than Joe Mixon.
That's egregious. It's egregious. Is it like proactively pricing the backups in case Joe Mixon missed the game? That's the only explanation that makes any sense. And
you're right. That must be you're right. That's it. But he becomes unplayable. Anyway, wrap up Cincinnati for me. Anything else you want to tackle here? Then we'll build a lineup and toss this one over to the MLB strategy show.
I like this defense a little bit more. I think they're just a little more complete. But again, we talked at the beginning of the show. I'm certainly not scared of the defense if I'm a Miami stacker or something like that. It's just like 1 for 1, force me to pick one defense. I'll take Cincinnati. And I'm going to be playing kickers from both teams throughout. No, I've seen a lot of chatter in chat. I'm not playing them in captain. I'm never doing that. So on slates like Monday, I'll just take those L's and I'll move on to the next one because you're going to take a lot of L's anyway if you're playing Showdown. No kicker captain for me, but flex, I'll ride it.
All right. Ryan Schindler says atone for your sins, people. Most of we've done a good job, right? We got about 150 likes here, 600 people watching. That's not a terrible ratio for a morning strategy show at 9 a.m. on the East Coast. So appreciate you people. You will live to see the pearly gate. Well, you'll see them when you die. The pearly gates of Stokastic YouTube heaven. But no, appreciate you guys supporting us. Matt and I, we love doing this show. So makes our lives a lot easier when you hang out with us every Monday and every Thursday as well. Ready to build a lineup?
Yeah. So do we want to do real large field Millie Maker style, or do we want to do kind of like that single entry mid-range we've been doing? Because I think
I love the $50, $75, $100 single, or even the $15 single entry, which is nice each week. It's like 10K to first or something like that. There's some nice single entries.
Yeah, I think that's solid. So then my question to you is, do you want to go real contrarian at captain with like a Mostert, or do we want to try to build in one of these stacks and get contrarian elsewhere?
So I'm okay with both, because if you went, say, Raheem Mostert at captain, then you could just load up everywhere else and you're still contrarian enough in a smaller field single entry, right? But you could also go with a top captain and then find other places to be contrarian. This is a weird spot to be contrarian in the utility, or a weird day, I think, to be contrarian in the utility, because there's so little value in Miami and Cincinnati at the bottom, but maybe that actually makes it better.
Let's try the Mostert captain.
Yeah,
I haven't built this yet, so I'm curious to see what they look like.
I haven't either. All right, let's give it a whirl. So Raheem Mostert is, man, yeah, that's a good price.
Cheap.
Okay, 6,600 at cap. That gives us 8,700 for our remaining 5 players. All right, you go ahead, because Raheem Mostert was a community pick here.
I'm going to go Burrow.
Okay. Burrow. That still gives us a lot. All right, 8,450. Do we want to go Higgins here?
Probably, because we've already been so contrarian.
Yeah, let's go Higgins.
I don't know. We could probably double. I kind of want to play Mixon, though.
I think we can do both. He has 20. He's averaging 7 targets a game.
Yes, I think we can too.
I actually like that build a lot. So if you don't have Chase, but you go Higgins and Mixon, so clearly 2 of the top options, and you have Burrow in there. But yeah, that's not bad at all. Now, obviously, Mostert at captain makes that a little weird, but I like it. And we're getting good players.
For sure. But you mentioned Mixon's involved in the pass game, and you're kind of playing with Miami playing from ahead, or at least that idea.
Right.
You have Cincinnati throwing it from behind, Burrow to Higgins, Mixon involved in any neutral game scripts, plus his elevated pass game role. I don't hate this.
I don't hate it at all. All right, so we got Mixon. We got 83 remaining. Now the question is, because I want one of Hill and Waddle. I think we need one of Hill and Waddle here.
For sure.
With what we have. I don't think we need to go insane with remaining salary. If we're talking single entry and we already have Mostert, it's a tough call. I'm fine with either of them. I think I'm going to go
whoever
Hill.
You want and then play Hurst.
What's that?
Pick whichever one you want and then play Hurst.
There you go.
Enough for it.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want Mike Gesicki?
If you're playing the Millie, maybe go Gesicki play.
Yeah, I don't want that. All right, let's go Hurst. Yeah. Or if you did want to be even more different, say in the Millie, you could play like a Sanders or a McPherson, leave 2K on the table. That's another way to do it. That will not be a very popular lineup in the Millie.
I like this kind of build because, one, I don't think Mostert's going to be owned in captain, but your lineups look really good. And I think there's pretty easy ways to be contrarian. Like you can include Mixon, or you could leave a little bit more salary on the table. Instead of playing Hurst, you could play a kicker. There's a lot of ways you can go with a build like this.
Agreed. Good stuff, man. This is fun as always. We love doing this. Any thoughts, Matt, before we head out of here?
Thank you guys. Up early on a Thursday, talking some Bengals, Miami Dolphins. I know we don't have the barn burners, the Giants or the Cleveland Browns, some of these other showdowns we've had recently, but thank you guys for being here. Love that you afford me and Lofty the ability to do what we love. So just thank you overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Echoed from me as well. Follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski. Me at Lofty_D on Twitter, LOUGHY_D. Landon, yeah, you're late, but you can go back and watch it all again. You can rewind it. You can watch it after the fact. Doesn't matter. Everything on Oddshopper. Everything. You got Matt's videos, mine, and Matt, we got the premium insider access. First week's free. So all of our early picks, all the picks that don't make it to YouTube are there as well. And the link's in the description. So that's pretty cool.
Yes, sir. Check it out. You're getting in all those props early. I'm getting all the college lines in early. Ton of value to be had when you can find these before closing lines.
Damn right. We'll see you guys back here soon. Good luck tonight. Matchup show with Matt Savoca and myself coming up in an hour. MLB strategy show right now. Peace.